a new curfew. The military, which seized power in a coup last week, is cracking down by restricting gatherings in major towns and cities. But thousands of people are defying those rules, turning out for a fourth straight day of protests. Reports that Myanmar police fired gunshots in the air in the capital city when water cannons failed to disperse the crowds. The party of the deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi says 2 people were seriously wounded by the gunshots. Well, my next guest is the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar. He says, and I quote, "The seizure of military power over a democratically elected government casts a dark shadow once again over the country. The generals have created a climate of fear and anxiety." Tom Andrews joins us now from Virginia. And your reaction, if you will, first to the news that 2 people have been seriously injured after police allegedly shot at protesters in the capital.
I'm very, very concerned, Becky. The Tatmadaw leaders are capable of anything. And so the people who are out in the streets right now in Myanmar have enormous courage. They understand what the military is capable of. And we're doing everything we possibly can to urge maximum restraint. We know that in many areas the police have been very restrained, but unfortunately we're hearing of the shots that you just mentioned, water cannons, rubber bullets. And I'm just making it as clear as humanly possible that the military leaders will be accountable, and everybody in the chain of command is going to be held accountable. There is no excuse to say I was just following orders. Everyone will be held accountable for following unlawful orders to commit atrocities, because that's what we're on the precipice of right now in Myanmar. It's happened before, and it could happen again.
Yeah. So the military has warned protesters to not, quote, destroy democracy, their words. What do you make of that language, given the situation as it stands? And you say they will be held accountable should things deteriorate further. How? How do you expect to hold these people accountable?
Well, first of all, to your first question, this is kind of Alice in Wonderland. They're talking about the rule of law, that is the generals, the commander-in-chief, following the rule of law, following the Constitution. And of course, they are breaking their own Constitution. They drafted this Constitution. It gives them enormous power, but they've overthrown it. So the ones who are violating the law systematically and before our eyes, obviously, are the Tatmadaw. So when they tell people they have to follow the law, well, again, it's Alice in Wonderland. There are a variety of mechanisms at the disposal of the international community. As you know, the Security Council met last week. They issued a very strong statement. The Human Rights Council will meet this week in Geneva. I'll be meeting with them. Countries around the world are taking a look at sanctions, the imposition of targeted, focused sanctions. I know that those discussions are going on right now, sanctions that will hurt the military leaders. We're looking at coordinated sanctions, nations working together in the application of these sanctions. And of course, there are various legal criminal mechanisms that are in place. And right now, there's an independent international mechanism for Myanmar that's collecting criminal information, criminal data for use in a prosecution. And there are various mechanisms, judicial mechanisms in place. Everything will be on the table in terms of these judicial options and sanctions as we watch what develops and unfolds.
Okay, including an arms embargo?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's fundamental. Absolutely fundamental.
How do you get anything through the UN without the support of the Chinese at this point?
Well, you know, that's a very good question. And when I mentioned the Security Council resolution, it was extraordinary. It called for the release of all prisoners. It called for respect for human rights. It called for return to the continuation of the path toward democracy. It was a very strong statement. So that gives you a signal at just how widespread this condemnation is. And when you get a resolution like that with China signing off on it, that really does say something.
To your mind, there will be people watching this going, what's the point? Isn't the military past the point of listening to the international community, the military in Myanmar? Do you concur? I mean, there will be that argument there that says that this is wasted time by the international community. Your response?
It's not wasted time. I mean, we know for a fact that taking diplomatic pressure, economic pressure, sanctions, holding out the real prospect of criminal prosecution, those are effective. They work. We've seen them work on the military. Now, the military of Myanmar, the generals are going to tell us all, they always have, they're impervious to international pressure. But when the United States, when the Europeans, Canadians, Australians, and others applied systematic, targeted, focused sanctions on that regime, on those generals, it had an impact. And the progress that we saw that was obviously overturned by this coup, but what progress we have seen is a direct result of the application of pressure and sanctions. They have worked, even though the generals say that they won't. They have worked and they can work.
Briefly, do you worry that Aung San Suu Kyi's damaged reputation may limit further action and support by members of the international community?
No. This is an assault on an entire people, a theft of a fragile, growing democracy. This is not about any particular political leader. It's about a crime that's unfolding before our very eyes. That's where we need to be focused, not on any particular individual or party, but on the people of Myanmar, particularly those that are in grave danger and those very courageous civil servants who are literally breaking ranks, including police officers, who are right now breaking ranks and joining protesters. We need to be focusing on them.
UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar, Tom Andrews, it's a pleasure having you on, sir. Important to get your insight and analysis as we watch the images sadly come in from Myanmar. Thank you. As we heard Tom calling for stronger international action against the military coup in Myanmar. My colleague Wolf Blitzer asked US Secretary of State how America can act as a leader of democracy given its problems at home. Have a listen.